Welcome back to another episode of the Skids and Giggles podcast. I'm Pascal, and I'm joined by my co-host Bryson. How's it going today, buddy?
Howdy ho, Pascal and Skigglers out there. I'm doing well. And really excited to get going here.
All right. Well, we just got done recording with Ramona Kupferschmied. What were your impressions?
Yeah, the conversation was really nice. I got a relatable impression. She is a young talent and just very relatable. So how about you? What'd you get from that?
Yeah, no, it was really cool to get this inside view into, her moving over from, let's say, the traditional racing career, the Olympic dream in cross-country racing, and now over to the more gravity side of things, downhill racing and crankworks and big jumps and all these kind of fun things, and kind of recalibrating her goals, her life plan a little bit, and how she sees the rest of her career. So it was really, really cool, and I'm glad we got to have this conversation and are able to share it with our listeners. But before we get to that, let's briefly do our spiel with the social and where you guys can find more information about the Skids and Giggles podcast. We are currently most active on our Instagram, where you can skid right into our DMs and follow along at Skids and Giggles. And you can find our website with all the relevant links and info under the URL skidsandgiggles.com. Also, if you guys like what we're doing and want to know what's up, just give us a follow on Spotify. Hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you listen to great podcasts. With that out of the way, let's get to the conversation with Ramona. Catch you guys after the show. Welcome to the Skids and Giggles podcast, Ramona Kupferschmied. How is it going tonight?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Well, all good, all good. Bryson, how are you doing?
Just dandy.
Well, tonight, before we start with the serious questions, we want to check back in with a question we had in a previous recording, and it was, now that we have someone that can really judge the question of what is more difficult, racing downhill with an XC bike or racing XC with a downhill bike, with someone that knows both worlds. So Ramona, what is your take on this question?
I think it would be more difficult to race an XC race with a downhill bike because it would be too heavy at first, and you can't shift enough. So you need to have massive legs to push all these watts, or the chain is going to break. I don't think this will work out.
Okay, but what if we add some lockouts? Does it then work if you can lock out the suspension, or would that not change it? Is it still too heavy?
Too heavy. Everything is too heavy in XC.
Okay, but if now that you know how it is to race downhill, how do you think would a typical cross-country bike, how would that feel on a downhill track?
Would you race with a hardtail or a full suspension bike?
No, you're allowed to full suspension.
To be honest, this would be a really fun race, I guess. Because you can really fuck up your bike.
Well, as long as everyone is racing a cross-country bike, I think that should be a lot of fun. It's just if you're the only one, then it's not much fun.
Wouldn't it be funny if you race with a cross-country bike and you're faster as some that race with a downhill bike?
I think that would be some good commentary.
I think too.
Okay, well, with that question out of the way, I guess we want to jump a little bit into your history, your background. You've recently changed over from an illustrious career in cross country to change over more to the gravity side of things, so more downhill, a bit of enduro, a lot of big air and jumping. So the real question is, how did you get into mountain biking in the first place? So how did it all start?
I remember being on holidays with my parents, and we were doing some tours with our bicycles. My dad always rode his bicycle quite often at home, and he did some marathon races. And I was really catched by the technical stuff. We did these tours, and at this point I was 10, 11 years old, No, it was earlier. Earlier. It was and the technical stuff just I found it so interesting to get this little bit of adrenaline there and
And how, I mean, that is just general, let's say, all mountain riding. So, what we all do and enjoy. So, taking an easy cruise up the hill and then chilling at the top and then having fun on the downhill. And then, how did you get into cross country?
for a long time I didn't do races in cross country because my sister did, my father did, and I was like, no, I want to do something different. So I wasn't interested in riding my bike at the beginning at all. And I did some football for about 4 years, played football, and I did horse riding and running as well. But that wasn't something for me because I always got pain in the stomach, when you run. And then I started discovering mountain biking anyway. And then I did the first few races, and I was good, pretty good.
Well, I mean, you say, well, you were pretty good. I think you were very good. So if you look back on your cross country career, so what were kind of your highlights? What are you really proud of that time?
I think one of the highlights for sure was the U17 Swiss Championship. I won. So that was really I trained a lot and I invested a lot for this title, and this was like really cool to get. And as well, Swiss Championships in 2020, I guess. I took third place, and it was pretty much in the Corona year, and it was a hard time too. So that was really cool, and nobody really thought that I would go on the podium there.
And who were your inspirations when you were when you were younger, and obviously you pushed yourself and you wanted to get better and improve, and who were your inspirations? Who were you looking up to at the time?
That's funny because I didn't really have like the person that I thought when I was a young girl. Oh, I want to be like her. I didn't have like this idol. I just did my thing or did what I wanted to.
So it's all like your inner motivation and like you drive yourself. Oh wow, okay. But because if now looking at today, you've it's very different going from cross country and to say downhill, which is another extreme, right? But the personality is still the same. So that is something later on I'm very very curious about.
I'm not sure about this because my personality changed a bit over the past year, I would say.
Oh, okay. How would you say that, or like, what are the things that make you say that?
In cross country, I was kind of different person than I'm now. There was a time I was really, really focused, almost too focused, and really strict about pretty much everything. And now I learn from things and I'm a little bit more chilled in some certain ways.
But did you maybe carry over some of the lessons that you learned as an XC racer, being so intense, being so focused, into the training or the mindset that you have as a DH racer now?
When I have something in my mind that I want to get or want to reach, I do a lot for it to reach it. But there is a point where you can get too focused and too like in your own tunnel to get something. There was a moment. What I want to say, there was a moment when I won my first national race in cross country, and I had the worst preparation before that I could have for a race. I was at the party before because we finished ninth school year, so the last year of school, and I was like, this will happen only one time in your life, so go for it. And I had the worst preparation you could have for a race, and I was so chilled at the starting line, and I won my first race there, and I couldn't believe it. So focus is good, but sometimes you can mean it too much. You know what I'm trying to say?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I have plenty of similar stories out of my own. Not quite, obviously, not quite the same level of sporting career, but examples in some from sports events where stuff has gone out the window for whatever reason. Something has happened. You didn't have your special dinner, and you didn't have your special whatever jersey or the lightweight socks or whatever it is, right? So. And at the end of the day, all this stuff doesn't matter, right? So routine, for example, routine is good if it helps you perform, but routine is also very challenging if it messes with your brain if it doesn't work,
Yeah,
right? So if all of a sudden, so if you need to do a certain set of intervals the day before a race, and this time you can't do it because you need to travel or whatever,
that's it.
and then that throws you completely off and you then can't perform, then that's also the routine is obviously no good, right? So,
Yeah, for sure.
but that's a cool point. Thank you for sharing.
I also have a situation that's very similar. I won't go into the detail, but what I did learn from it was that sometimes it's also about the preparation that you did all the way up to, let's say, for example, that party the night before, and that counts for a lot, really.
Yeah,
And it could be that, yeah, taking the pressure off yourself on race day really just let you to extract all of that preparation that you had from months before to really perform on that occasion.
for sure. You can train as much as possible and then being prepared perfectly, but if you can handle the pressure, it is difficult.
That leads me into one of the burning questions that I have, and I haven't talked to so many professional cyclists, but since you are former XC racer and now downhill racer, when I look at when I follow the racing on TV or I mean on the internet or whatever it is, I see like two really different like kind of camps. Let's say like you have the XC racers who are very like structured and hyper focused, and then you have the downhill side, which I can more relate to as to being maybe not so much, definitely professional and it's very skilled, but it doesn't give off that persona, at least through the camera lens, that it's so like hyper focused. And so I wanted to get your impression or what your opinion is on the starkest contrast of the two.
It's funny because the cross country racers always say, or when I was into it, was like the downhill races are really chilled and they're doing nothing. They're just racing down, rolling down, and it was a bit like this. They have heavy party night outs and stuff like this. And when downhill riders are talking about cross country races, it was like, oh, they're really strict and they're really focused and too much, and they're like not even saying hello to each other. And it's not that bad on each side, but there is a kind of true thing on both. You know, in downhill, it is a little bit more casual, but there are some riders who are really, really strict too. And I think everybody needs to find out for themselves what works best. But I think it's a lot more familiar in downhill racing, a lot. In cross country, you have your team and everybody goes itself. It's maybe also because everybody has his training plan and he's doing his own training, and it's like more separate. I didn't felt really home in cross country like I feel in downhill. There's everybody helping each other, and it's like more family for me. I don't know, maybe for somebody other, it's completely different, but that's how I feel.
Over the years, I've followed downhill a little bit more than cross country, but in the recent years, I've actually flipped and I follow cross country more often than downhill. And I don't know, maybe it's partly because of my writing style has changed, or I don't know, maybe what I'm doing is a little bit different and I want to understand a little bit something more relatable to me. Not sure exactly. But the one thing that I have noticed is that, yeah, in the past, the image from downhill used to be like kind of like let loose party and then drink beers and have fun, and I thought that was great, and I was very attracted to that, and I still see that. However, I have noticed through media, but also through like results and watching social media and following the athletes a little bit more closely. Thanks to social media, this is possible. But it used to be that what I believed was downhill was more of like skill, risk, and kind of like what's the PC term for like having balls, like having having wanting to take risks. And then it's transitioned or progressed also now into having fitness. So you really see that they athletes taking a lot of care to making sure they're super strong and they have a really good cardio as well. And it's making the field a lot harder to compete in.
Absolutely. I can confirm that. It's hard work too. It's different work. You don't spend like 5, 6 hours on a road bike, but you spend a lot of time in building up force and improving your technique. That's true.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about world class athletes performing at the highest level of the sport, right? So
Yeah.
no one is stumbling into world class without
Sure.
doing his homework, right? And then if you look at some of the, let's say, the top 10 downhill teams, let's say on the men's side, right, or well, both genders, right? They have staff, they have physios, they have line guys, they have line timing guys, they have video guys, they have telemetry guys, they have, I listened to a podcast today. Apparently, riding addiction. So Amaury Pierron's team, the Commensal team, they have a staff of 17 people. Right, so
Wow.
and specialized, right? So that or 17 people in the accommodation or something
Wow.
like that, right? So, and that just shows you, the level of how things have progressed, and obviously thanks to a lot of investment in the sport. And that's obviously something you've had in cross country by the nature of it being Olympic. There's a lot more funding, there's a lot more support staff, etc., and that is now only just coming in downhill, I feel.
Yeah.
And well, it will be interesting to see what happens with the change now from Red Bull to the ESO. But yeah, so that will be interesting. So now that we've talked a lot about cross country and what's different to downhill, I mean, we still haven't talked about why did you actually change? So what happened?
It came really quickly for me too. That's why I was so surprised. Me too. I think I begin at the beginning. That's a bad thing. There was Corona coming in 2, 3 years ago, and I always knew that everything happens for a reason. At this point, I was like so focused into cross country. I was so focused for Swiss Championship. I was training really hard, and I made improvements because I had a really good coach, which I changed to. And Corona came, a lot of events and races got cancelled. And I started to go. I certainly had a lot more time. And I started to go for some fun rides with some friends. What I never did, because that's what I said at the beginning. If you ride with somebody else, you can't ride your perfect amount of watts. I started doing that and really enjoyed it. And I was always good in the technical stuff as well as in the cross country World Cups. I was always loving technical stuff. That's why I loved Mount St. Anne so much. Yes, and I started doing that and more and more and more. And there were days I was almost living on my bike because I had 2 trainings, normal for cross country. And after these 2 trainings, I went for a ride out with my friends. And this was a crazy time. It was really crazy time. I was spending my life in the saddle. But that was one of the best time in my life because I was so stuck these years in in a world, and then you close up your eyes and there you see that there is a lot more stuff going on and different things, and you enjoy it. It was amazing time. And I started also doing jumps, which I was very afraid from at the beginning. I in 2016 I had a bad accident about a drop in Lenterheide with my hardtail when I also was just riding for fun in the bike park, but in when World Cup of Lenterheide was there, I was a bit riding there, and I had a really bad accident where I damaged my face. I had lips like really bad, and I damaged my liver. And then I had big fear of drops. Still have fear of drops. I don't like them at all. Don't really like them. And I started doing it step by step, higher, longer, bigger with my friends. And I started really enjoying it.
What was your first race?
It was last year in Austria. It was Austrian Championship there. In I don't know something with K.
Must have made an impression.
Yeah, it was really funny because I went there. It was like 8 hours, like for a really small race, and all Austrians were like, "Why do you come here? Why do you come here and traveling so long just for this race?" And I was like, I needed to do my first race before I go to Crankworks.
Is that where you gained the name Flying Zöpfli?
I think I gained it in the year where I rode cross country but started doing jumps because my hair were a lot longer than they are now. I bleached them and they started to break, and now they are like a little bit damaged.
Okay. So the hair was braided like this special bread from Switzerland.
Yeah, I always braided my hair because they were too long to let them out free.
We actually have on that topic, the big drops, the big jumps, first race. We have a number actually of listener questions. We reached out on our socials before the recording, and quite a few of them, they center around confidence, and quite a few were asking, how were you building the confidence to, after that horrible crash, then to go for bigger drops and to go for the big jumps that you're hitting these days?
To be honest, I'm not a really very confident person, not at all, really. I just enjoyed it and I just did it. It's as basic as it sounds, but I wanted to do something and I did it.
Okay. But did you have like a progression? So you started with smaller jumps and then you worked towards bigger and bigger and bigger. So
Yeah,
okay.
for sure. If you do some small and then you keep on going and always improve your skills and your jumps, I did this jump of this size, I can do this one, and you get a little bit of confidence for sure. For sure. And it's funny because now jumps are looking sometimes so much smaller than it was a year ago. When you look at a jump a year ago, you were like shaking, and now you're like, okay.
There you go. So then after that first downhill race, that went well, I assume, and then upwards from there. So how did the changeover continue from the first downhill race after you started throwing yourself into more gravity oriented racing?
Huh. Good question. I think I'm less nervous before the race because last year the cross country background was still pretty close, and now it's a little bit further away, and I'm getting a bit more relaxed because in the end, all it matters to do what you love and being happy, and it's not worth it to do something you don't really like. What I want to say, I don't want to run behind some results. I just want to enjoy myself riding. And it's really changed from last year to this year. Last year I was more result focused than now. And that's maybe also why I'm less nervous on in the starting gate.
Okay.
And I started to work with a coach in last December, which I didn't last year. I had for every years in racing, I had a coach which said me what to do and what to train every day. And last year was the point. I do a year by my own. I just do what I want to do. No coach telling me what to do. If I want to go outside and ride, I do it. If not, I do not. But I started to mention that I needed to build up some force for racing faster because I knew I can go faster, but I don't have the power to it, and this sucked. So I like force training, so I started to work with the coach in December, and I noticed this change for sure.
Do you have other people like assembled to support you, like doing track walks or giving you tips on technique, things like that?
Most of the time, I go riding with my friends or doing the training the coach says. But track walk, if I have a mechanic with me, I'll probably do it with my mechanic. If not, I'll do it by my own. Yeah, sometimes my parents are coming with me, but the thing is, they did this racing thing over 10 years in cross country. They were at every race. They used all their vacation days to go with me on races. And at some point, you're getting older as well, so it's good to do more stuff by your own. That's for me. It's totally fine if they're not coming with every race. Totally fine because I'm now living my life, and it's good that they have the time to live theirs.
I mean, what? How did your the people in your corner, so like your family, your sponsors, your friends, how did they react when you told them, it's like, guys, I'm done with this cross country stuff, and by the way, I'm gonna go do downhill now. How did the people around you, how did they react?
It was really hard for everybody. For me, in my heart, I knew I want to change, and I never did a single race. Before I did a single race, I knew I want to go to downhill, and but I wasn't able to try it out because my team said in this season, no, you have a contract, you're racing cross country, which was true. It's a too high risk of you getting injured in the downhill race. I can understand that. But it was really hard because I wasn't really able to maybe try out one race to see if I'm good and if I like it. I mean, I knew I like it, but this was a really hard time. And then in the next year, the planning was to do a 50-50 season. So starting with cross country and the second half of the season doing downhill and enduro and figuring out what I want to do. But in my heart, I exactly knew 1 year ago what I want to do. So I did my first cross country race in this season, and after it, I said, no, no more. Now I'm done. I'm completely done. And I had a chat with my team. My parents are also my team, so we had a chat together, and they said all it matters is that you are happy with what you're doing. And I changed. In my mind, I had a lot of things. You know, if you live also this life and you're not full time working, you have sponsors which you have a contract, you have a team, you have parents. It was really hard decision. And I lost some partners, I lost some sponsors when I changed. But every door, when a door closes, another one will open, and it did.
So then what was the easiest part about the change?
Switching from my 140 millimeter trail bike to a 210 millimeter downhill bike, maybe.
Plush.
This was really cool moment. Yeah.
But like maybe one final thing on the cross country versus downhill. I mean, of course, in cross country, you always have the big dream, the big goal is of course the Olympics, and eventually, rocking up at the next venue in your Swiss national team jersey and riding for Olympic gold, hopefully. What drives you in downhill? Do you have already, because from a personality, of course, you still look for a goal and the result, I would assume, because people change, but not that dramatically.
Yeah.
So what is the dream? What is the dream in your new career?
That's a good question because I was so on this way. I want to go to Olympics. I want to race in an Olympic race. And now I'm like, I just like mountain biking. I just like racing downhill, and I don't care where the race takes place. So I don't care if it's a World Cup or if it's an IXS Cup or a Hot Trail Cup, as long as the trail is sick and I enjoy riding and there are some sick jumps, I'm in. And yeah, I enjoy it and love it. But goals, I don't really have like, for sure, I want to go to championships, for sure. I want to go to world championships, which didn't work out, unfortunately this year. But I don't know. I don't really have. I want to go faster. I want to do bigger jumps, but I don't have like, oh, I want to win or want to go on a podium in the World Cup next year. If it happens, really cool. Would be nice, definitely. I would love to stand one time on a World Cup podium. I never did. But main goal is really to enjoy riding as long as possible, and that's my main goal.
Have you thought about giving back to like the local community or the community in a grander scheme? So like getting involved in coaching or getting involved in like mentorship programs for young Ramonas that are 10, 15 years younger than you are, and to inspire the next generation that maybe also caught up in a traditional racing environment and don't even know about all these things.
I'm not that long part of it. I started racing downhill last year, so I still have to figure it out how all it works. It was my first World Cup season, so I still have to figure out a lot. But what I do sometimes, if I'm around, I do some coaching from the bike club, where I also started mountain biking when I was a young kid.
Yeah, to me, it sounds like you're sort of like in an exploration stage.
Yeah.
You're finding your way. I even noticed that you're interested in crankworks, which means you probably are also thinking about a little bit interdisciplinary, like, for example, not only just doing DH, but also the other events that surround crankworks. And I've seen you also do a little bit of trick jumping, so maybe even freestyle or free riding is in your future. I wouldn't say no to anything at this point.
It's really cool. I like jumping so much and doing tricks normally, yes. I haven't trained it now a long time because it's another thing with racing. It's sometimes really hard because you want to do big jumps and you want to learn tricks, but you want to also do good in races, and the risk of getting injured, of doing like some free ride stuff, is there. And this I need to figure out how I'll manage in the future because I'll get angry if I get injured for an important race, but I'll also get angry if I'm not really doing what I want to do, If I have to, like in cross country, if I have to cancel things because it's not good for your performance, and I don't want to that this will repeat like it was in the cross country, that I have to cancel so many things, and because you are in this tunnel and so strict for everything. So I want to do races, but some big jumps and tricks stuff would be cool as well.
Yeah, it's hard to find that balance of being mindful of the fear, but also not letting it hold you back. I think like everyone deals with this in every way, shape, or form, in some way or in some ways, anyways. And yeah, your form is through cycling.
We have some more listener questions. It's a occasion is of course tomorrow Swiss Enduro Series in Lenzerheide. One of the guys from the team, he reached out and was like, "Why are we not seeing you more at Swiss Enduro Series races?"
I rode up or pedaled up so many years that I'm really done with it now. I need to say I'm kind of traumatized from this period of my life. I'm really so I really like to go down fast. That's not the problem in enduro, but in enduro you have to pedal as well. No, I don't have motivation for this. And of course, the jumps are missing.
I'll give that feedback tomorrow. We also had a technique question, very detail oriented listener and follower, Domi Wittmo. He looked at a couple of photos. I actually noted it myself, and he was wondering why you're breaking with your middle finger.
I don't know. I just started breaking like this and I kept on going. But it's funny because a lot of people are asking me about this. I don't know. It's why are other people not breaking with their middle finger? for all
Exactly.
Why?
Exactly. Maybe they're missing something.
I don't know. I feel like I can grab my handlebar better like that.
Oh, okay. Well, all the joking aside, I have noted that my kids, when they had the wrong kind of brake levers, so when they have adult brake levers, then they would do the same or similar. So kind of have the index finger next to the bars and then brake with the two middle ones, and then use the pinky again to hold on to the handlebars. So maybe it has to do something with that. I don't know.
The only problem is when you have like a brake that has a lot of air in it, and you can pull the brake lever almost to the edge. You get this finger here gets stuck, so you can't brake anymore. But I don't have this problem with my trick stuff brakes, so luckily.
Right, and you don't want to brake too much anyway, so.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, so back to the flying Zöpfli. I was cruising on your website and I found your blog. Some really nice write-ups in the XC part. In the downhill part, you don't do so much writing, but you have some really good pictures. As well, you have a little bit of a baking blog going on. So I thought maybe that was part of the flying Zöpfli theme. But anyways, tell us about your passion or your interest in baking. Are you making your own nutrition bars for sport?
No, not anymore. I'm not a cross country rider anymore. You know, there was a period of time I was really interested in baking and cooking, but my website is a little bit, the stuff on this is a little bit old, so I'm now on the way to update it. I'm not doing these recipe things anymore. It was in a period of time I was very, very food focused in this cross country thing, like almost everybody is.
Food is fuel.
Yeah, but you have to consume foods that you feel you are getting fueled. I like to bake bread. I think it's really relaxing to do the dough. That's really relaxing. I like that a lot.
It's good. It's also good for hand strength.
Yeah, for sure. But I have now another focus and other things going on, so I'm not doing this very often.
Okay.
But by the interest in bread, the Flying Zöpfli moniker will stand.
Yeah, for sure.
Wasn't that the team name with your sister at the Enduro 2?
Yes, first year. Yes, and the first time we went there.
Are you going to do that race again, or?
Yes. It's a bit sad that it's at the same weekend like World Cup Val di Sole, but we are going for the fourth time this year, and I decided rather do a really fun, cool event, which I started this gravity thing because the enduro team in Davos was my very first gravity event I did. So I absolutely wanted to do it. And I can do so many World Cups. So I'm looking forward to this.
Cool. Well, I guess before we wrap it up, I mean what is the future hold for Ramona? What is the plan for the rest of the year and then next year? What are we gonna where are we going to see you?
The plan is I have no plan. No, just kidding. I'll definitely do some World Cups again. I would also like to do maybe a free ride event, but sometimes it's hard to get there if you don't have any connections. I think not a lot of enduro, maybe also just enduro team. If it fits in, maybe it's good training enduro. I enjoy it a lot. It's cool, but I prefer downhill a lot more. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Maybe some IXS Cup as well, like this year. Crankworks.
Oh yeah, of course, Crankworks.
I love this event. It's cool.
Are you gonna do the whole World Series or just the one in Europe?
I think the one in Europe, definitely, in Innsbruck. I would one day love to go to Whistler or New Zealand as well, but it's a lot of traveling and I'm also working next to the whole racing and training stuff. So at the moment, I don't really like flying somewhere. I don't know. I prefer staying in Europe and going by car.
Understandable if you see the pictures from the different airports globally and stories of lost baggage and
Yeah, it's not funny. Believe me, I've been in Mountain Dan 2 times and one time in South Africa. And if you don't have your bike and you go 1 week before the race and you don't have it, that's really sucks.
All right, final question or input from a listener is it's almost a bit poking the bear a little bit. Someone was wondering if you're also changing the design of your jersey, or because it still looks quite XC. So are we going to see a more DH fashion jersey next year?
It's not me that decides about the final look of the jersey. It's the team that decides. But I said for next year, I would love to change some things. And my parents are like the owner of the team, so I think we can have a discussion there.
All right, Bryson, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, so I noticed on one of the pictures that you have posted, just a really small corner of a few pixels worth of image was something on your left shoulder on your back, and it looked like a dream catcher.
Yeah,
but I wasn't quite sure.
yeah, it was my first tattoo I did this when I turned 18. Yeah.
And so what's the symbol of that?
I wanted to do a tattoo themed with mountain biking, and I just didn't want it to have normal like just a basic bike. And I was thinking about it a lot, and I designed it by my own with the image I had in my mind, and I was like, a braking disc would be cool in the Dreamcatcher on top, and then some feathers and some stuff in it that has to do with mountain biking. And this tattoo is also I really wanted to do it earlier, but my parents always say when you're 18 you can do it. And earlier I had like a big operation on my left leg. I don't know if you know that. I had like two different size of legs. So my left leg was 3.5 centimeters shorter than my right because I broke it when I was younger and it didn't grow the same way as the other one. And I had to do operation to lengthen it. And I did that, and so I turned 18. I had 3 or 4 months crutches when I turned 18 with crutches, and I had to wait until I finally could do the tattoo because I had to inject something that makes your blood less thick, and they don't do tattooing if you inject stuff like this because of the bleeding. So I had to wait, and I would get really lucky when I finally could do it.
Well, I guess we are getting towards the end of our time, so I think we're going to close out with our infamous now closeout questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
The first one that we like to use, like to ask our guests, is we ask them to tell us a little bit more about the first bike that got them really stoked on riding.
I think the first bike was really my Wheeler hardtail kids bike I had when I was in vacation with my parents when I started discovering the mountain biking world. And yeah, I think it was this one. Later I think it was my Stoll trail bike, which I sended some stuff or started sending some stuff for sure after my downhill bike.
All right. Our second one. Imagine you're Harriet Schedini and you're a bike magician extraordinaire. You can make riding a bike more awesome for anyone by the stroke of a magic dropper post. What would you do?
Giving everybody the chance to ride a good bike in a good bike parks, because there are people who can afford lift carts or a good bike where you really can enjoy a trail. If you have, a bike you can buy for 50 francs, a bad one, but you can't enjoy a trail like that. So I think a lot more people, or also kids, would go biking if they have the ability to go on a lift or to have a good bike. And it would be cool that everybody could afford it.
So we know you as a former XC racer, aspiring downhiller, and a good time haver, which includes a little bit of skids and giggles on the trail. But we want to hear from you. What makes a great skid in the eyes of the flying Zöpfli?
If you mean it too good and get caught by the ground, maybe. Nah, just kidding. I think having the right amount of speed, not enough and not a lot of tire pressure, and just smashing into the burn. And there is like a white wet line after you smash that burn in the corner, then you did it perfectly, I guess.
All right, Ramona, thank you very much. That was really, really cool and interesting. If our listeners have any questions, want to reach out to you, want to find you somewhere, where can they reach you? Where can they find you?
They can write me on Instagram if they wanted to. Just send me a message. Feel free.
We'll put your handle in the show notes so people can find it. Thanks again. That was really, really cool. Bryson, thank you as well. And I hope to see you out on the trail soon.
For sure.
Ciao, Ramona.
Have a good one. Ciao.
Thanks for listening. We really hope you enjoyed this episode.
Pascal and I put a lot of heart and soul into this podcast, and it means a lot to us that you've listened to it. We'd also really appreciate if you shared it with the people that you know and care about. Until next time, Skigglers.